I love those aha moments in life when you learn something that is so impactful that it changes the way that you think. Because when things change the way we think, they change the way we behave over time. I had one of those impactful moments as an entrepreneur. It was several years ago. I was at a gathering. It was a retirement celebration for a businessman who had been 30 plus years with his organization, leading it, and he was a few months from retirement, and this was one of the things they were doing to honor him. It was a man by the name of Jimmy Collins, and Jimmy, as a young man, designed restaurant kitchens. And Truett Cathy, who was the founder of Chick-fil-A, hired Jimmy to help him build the second restaurant that Truett was opening. And so Jimmy pretty quickly rose through the leadership ranks at Chick-fil-A, and he spent many years as the chief operating officer and finally the president of that company. And this was a way to honor him. And during the course of that event, they had a question and answer session. And the question was asked, Jimmy, a lot of things changed tremendously while you were at Chick-fil-A. What changed the most? And you think about the changes he saw from 2 restaurants to where they were on that day, which was 1,700 plus locations. They were approaching $1.5 billion in sales, virtually debt-free as a company. Tremendous success story, helped define what we call the quick service restaurant industry. And he had seen a tremendous amount of change. And what he said, I think, was the foundation I want to visit with you about for a couple minutes today. But before I tell you what he said, let me just say thanks to the Undivided team for putting this together. I truly think that the difference they're making is huge and impactful. I have the opportunity to have been an entrepreneur, for better or worse, for a very long time. I'm a partner in a company that's based in Austin. I hail from the great state of Texas, if you couldn't tell from the accent. And partner in a company in Austin that helps companies with talent acquisition. And I also have the great privilege of working with Elizabeth Ledoux and the work that she does at VenaCell, helping to build entrepreneurs to transform their company and really develop them into sustainable enterprises. And so I love entrepreneurship. I think it's the backbone of our culture. Our politicians give it a lot of lip service, but they don't do a lot else other than try to regulate it. And it's a tough journey that entrepreneurs have. Reid Hoffman, who is the founder of LinkedIn, has a great metaphor he uses about founding companies. He said starting a company is a lot like throwing yourself off a cliff and assembling an airplane on the way down. And if you're an entrepreneur, you know what that feels like. You've got all these things coming at you quick. It's sales and marketing and customer issues and people issues and real estate and all these things that you're trying to get together so it'll fly before you crash into the ground. And unfortunately, the stats aren't real encouraging when you look at that. U.S. Census Bureau says only between 35 and 50% of enterprises that are started will see their 5th anniversary. Gallup organization says it very much the same. They say more than half of all businesses will fail within their first 5 years of existence. So the stats are tough, and we have to do everything we can to support them because they do transform our communities and our culture. So let's talk about how we move those stats for entrepreneurs. And I think it's wrapped up in what Jimmy Collins said that day. So let's go back to his retirement, and he answered that question. He said, you know, there was a lot of things that changed during my time at Chick-fil-A. I saw tremendous changes. But the thing that changed most was me. And in that simple statement, he wanted to explain how he had changed in the 30-plus years he had been with the organization, and people who had coached him and mentored him and developed him and helped him transform that company and become the company that it had been. And those two things, I think, are foundational to moving those statistics from 35 to 50% to higher. We have to be able to change, and we got to have people who come alongside us to help those changes. Change is really difficult. The best illustration I know is from actually a good friend of Undivided, Dr. Roger Hall. He uses this example. If you're my age, when it was cold or rainy on Saturday afternoon, you couldn't ride your bike or play outside, you watched Westerns on TV. There were 1,000 of them. I saw them all. But they all had the same storyline. At some point during that Western, there was always a good guy on his horse, and we knew he was a good guy because he had on a white hat. And he was always by himself chasing a bunch of bad guys. And we knew they were bad guys because what were they wearing? Black hats. You saw that episode. And so they've got their 6-shooters out and they're shooting at each other. And the good guy, at this point in the episode, is never a very good shot because he never hits anybody. Now, later in the episode, he gets to be a much better shot. The bad guys are always phenomenal shots. They're riding, shooting over their shoulder, and they always hit the good guy. It's never a mortal wound, but he always falls off his horse. Usually he's shot in the leg. And so he's laying on the ground. Now his riderless horse makes a couple of circles around him on the trail, confused, not sure what to do. And what does the horse always do? The horse goes back up the trail. It goes back to town. Specifically, it goes back to the barn. It goes back there because it knows that way. It's been there before. It's familiar. It's comfortable. It feels safe. And that's what we do as people. When we're faced with adversity or challenges, unlike Salvatore, we tend to do what feels comfortable. We go back the route we came from. We go back to what feels safe and what feels familiar. And we get the same results. So in your life and in your business, if you're looking at the results you're getting, I would tell you that our businesses are perfectly designed to get the results that we're getting today. And if we're not happy with a part of those results, if we want more customers or more revenue or more profits, it means we've got to change our design, which starts with changing ourselves. There's a lot of science out about how people change. Pretty fascinating. But there's two questions that you've got to ask yourself about a change. The first one is, can I do it? Whatever it is, am I able to make that change? And the second one is it worth it? If I make that change in my job, in my health, in my family, will the results be worth it? If you can say yes to those two questions, the chances of you having a successful change are really pretty good. And you can increase those odds by doing one simple thing. You can bring an influencer alongside of you. Influencers are mentors and trainers and coaches, folks who are probably not in your organization, but people who can help you get out of the fray, the day-to-day muck and mire that gets us stuck in our organizations, and look at what needs to be changed and what needs to be redirected. And they do that over a long period of time because change occurs gradually in slow steps. There's some really interesting research. We have some university students here today. Some interesting research about students. Who does better? A student who crams right before an exam or a student who studies methodically through the semester? Who does better on the test? Most people would say the student who studies methodically. Actually, the methodical studier and the crammer do about the same on tests, which explains how I got through college, by the way. The difference though, is those of us who crammed, see students rule the world, those of us who crammed forget it very quickly. But those who have methodical reinforcement of their learning, it's sustainable. It changes them. And so in your business, if you have somebody who comes alongside, a group, a coach, a mentor, that helps you identify the change and reminds you of those changes periodically about where you're headed, those changes will be sustainable and they'll help transform your business. Just in closing, one tip, because one of the things we struggle with is, what do I need to change? And Elizabeth talks about it. As an entrepreneur, often we're not sure what parts of the business we need to hold on to and what parts that we give away. Gallup has done some fascinating work in this area. It's all about our strengths and the way we're wired. And if you want to start looking at the changes for you or for your team, take a sheet of paper and draw a line right down the middle. And on the left side of that sheet of paper, you're going to ask yourself or a member of your team, if you're doing it with someone else, some simple questions. Because if I come to you, if you're like most Americans, and I say, tell me what your strengths are, you'll struggle with that question. You'll give me generic answers. I'm good with people. I like analytical thinking. But if I come to you and say, Tom, what do you do first every day? What do you do that when you do it, time flies? You're in your zone. What are the things you can't wait to get back and do again tomorrow? You're going to give me very specific behaviors, and those are going to indicate your strengths. And then on the right side of the paper, you do the same thing. I will come to you, instead of saying, what are you not good at? I'll say, what is it that you put off? What is on your desk this morning that already had a deadline that you missed? What are the things that you get up and leave your desk for 10 times to go get coffee or water because you really don't enjoy doing it? those are your areas of weakness. And so as you look at growing your team, if you will take, because what we assume is, I got to do it all because I'm taking it for the team. If I don't like doing it, nobody likes doing it. But actually those tasks that you disdain, that you put off, there is somebody in your world or somebody that you can find who lives for those things, believe it or not, as crazy as that might sound. And so if you will keep those tasks that you love, that you do first, that you can't wait to get to, and if you'll give away those tasks that drive you crazy and never get done on time, you'll start to build a team that functions very, very highly. So the takeaways, change is critical for us as entrepreneurs. And you've got to be serious about it. You've got to have somebody alongside you that will help that change be sustainable and transformable over a very long period of time. And then you've got to have some tools and resources to build that into the team that you have. Thanks for your time. I hope you have a great day.